Okay, welcome to this week's Opening Bell. I'm boxing news editor Tris Dixon, joined, I'm pleased to say, by Nisse Sauerland. How's it all going?
Everything's going well, thank you very much, Tris. Good to be here.
And you had a big show on in Denmark over the weekend. Pleased with how it went?
Yeah, very pleased. You know, we had this young kid, Patrick Nielsen. He's 21 or 22-0 now. He's only 22 years old. He's ranked highly in all the federations. Strong southpaw. And you know, he's coming along nicely under the. He's training with Joey Gamache, former two-time world champion, and you know, he's really progressing a lot.
And Joey, who was based in New York and training people in North America, he's now based in Denmark training your guys. Is that right?
Yeah. We you know, we've got in touch through Don Majeski out there, and actually Dean Powell, God rest his soul, recommended him originally. You know, I spoke to him, got him over to watch my kids, spent a week with them. He was very impressed. He said, you know, you've got a blank canvas here. You can really bring these kids along. And, you know, he's done that. And we you know, we're building a nice stable out there.
Okay, good stuff. And how far have you come today to be in the office? Because you're not based in Germany, are you? Or Denmark, for that matter.
No, me and my brother have lived in London since I was 2 months old. He was 2 years and 4 months old. So we've lived here all our lives. So yeah, I had a 15-minute tube ride. Yeah, very nice to just pop into the office.
Yeah, definitely. You should come here more often. With regards to Patrick Nielsen, we've got a fight report in this week's issue. And I think it's fair to say Per Person says that there's something there to work with, but he's going to need to step up the level of opposition before long. At the same time, I can see, judging by the fan reaction in Denmark, he's also a character and a commodity that you need to develop. What comes first, stepping up the level of opposition or building that fan base?
Well, the thing about Patrick was he was in Dancing with Stars. You know, we have it over here on the BBC, very highly rated show. He got all the way to the final and came second. The problem there is his fame was above his boxing, so he was known more as a dancer than as a boxer. So now we're trying to catch the boxing up with the fame part. Everyone knows who he is, but they know him for the wrong reasons. And now we need him to prove himself inside the boxing ring, which he is doing, and he's getting recognised for that. He's got a very good fan base over there. And, you know, of course, Mikkel Kessler opened up the doors for that and allowed, you know, a young kid like Patrick to come through. And, you know, the popularity and the need and the hunger for boxing is already there. So, you know, we have to fill that hole.
Sure. With regards to Nielsen, you obviously mentioned Miguel there. Patrick, 160 pounds, Miguel, 168. Possible fight down the line?
Yeah, you know, you never know. Boxing's, you know, as you know, is a weird game. You know, a domestic fight is always special. Look at Froch and Groves. It's, you know, it's a massive, massive fight. This would be massive pay-per-view in Denmark. But you know, I think that's a long way off at the moment.
Okay, all right. Okay, tell us about the captain and what's going on with Mr. Huck, who, as you know, has cultivated a somewhat large fan base in the UK. He's sort of a cult hero now in the UK, thanks to his appearances, I think, on Setanta at the start, and then Box Nation. We've sort of followed him almost every step of the way from those early days when he was a very sort of crude swinging operator to a guy who's now racked up nearly a record number of defences.
Yeah, you know, with Marco, he's you know, he'll be fighting again before the summer. You know, Marco's one of these guys. He's almost learnt on the job. You know, he first at the beginning of his career he relied just purely on his power and the fact he was just a strong guy. You know, he's a proper, you know, real beast in there. Now, Marco's learnt on the job, as I just said. And he's become a bit better boxer, but it's still that sort of raw energy and that raw power that people like to watch. And you know, Marco's never been in a bad fight.
In the magazine this week, we've actually speculated what might happen or we haven't, we've left it to the readers, but what might happen if Marco had fought Johnny Nelson and they were both at their primes, how would you have seen that fight going?
You know, Johnny was a slippery customer. I think he actually in his first 10 fights may have lost 4 or 5 of his first fights.
He had a really patchy start. Yeah.
But then he went over to Germany, and this is what I believe is the story, and I believe he's told me this, but Johnny, if I'm wrong, correct me. He sparred with Henry Masker and I think even Axel Schulz. And it gave him the belief. He said, wow, look, I can mix it with these guys. Let me take this and, you know, put this into my career and take the confidence out. And he never looked back. I believe he defended his WBO title. Actually, I think more than Hook. Just one more than Hook or equal to Hook.
Marco's on the
on the so, you know, it'll be an interesting fight. You know, Johnny's a slippery customer, as I say, but Marco's real power. You're gonna put me on the spot.
Definitive answer.
Okay, well, look, I think Johnny might get angry with me, but I'd say Hook decision.
Okay. He says that with a wink as well at the same time. Okay, we've talked a little bit before we went on air about Froch and Groves, and that is good for the sport that fight's been made. So many fights have gone by the wayside apparently in recent years, but you've got a significant chunk of the cruiserweight talent around at the moment. You have Marco and Juan Pablo Hernandez, and that's one of the sort of dream fights that people would want to see. Is that a match you're looking to make? Get those two guys in together?
You know, I think with that fight, the problem with that is they have the same trainer. You know, I could actually see that fight being made one day. I really could, and I think it'll be a great fight. You know, they spar a lot with each other as well, so they know each other, which could either go for a good fight or a bad fight. You never know. But yeah, I mean, that fight could be made one day, but I don't see it happening in the near future because I think there's so many good fights to make out there at cruiserweight that, you know, it's not like a Froch Groves, you know, 2 super middleweights who are on a collision course. I think you know, there's enough cruiserweight action out there to for
them to start narrowing down the field.
Exactly.
Okay. We have a question here from Adrian McSwiggan off Twitter, who says, where do you see David Price in 18 months if all goes well? And what was the issue with David and Adam Booth?
You know, I think I'll start with the issue of Adam and David. I believe it was, you know, not personal differences, but business differences between the two. We get along with Adam very well. You know, my brother is in touch with Adam on a daily basis. We've worked with David Haye, you know, over the years, and it's worked very well. So it's, as far as that's concerned, it's nothing to do with me or my brother, that side of things. Regarding 18 months with David Price, you know, I met him on Monday. He's training very well under the tutelage of Tommy Brooks. You know, he's going to make his next fight on the 29th of March. The idea is to have him out once more before the summer. And then, you know, early after the summer, bring him back to Liverpool. And, you know, 18 months, it's a good question, you know. If all goes to plan, we could have him in line to be fighting for a major title.
Have you made a big investment into David? You know, when you look at who's the star names in your stable, is your investment in David as great as it has been in some of the other stars that you've got?
Yeah. I mean, for me, David is, you know, I saw him the first time I saw him, and the reason why I was really wanted to sign the guy was because I saw him sparring with Pulev, Kubrat Pulev, IBF #1, over in Berlin, and I saw him and I thought, oh my God, for a big guy, this guy's so quick, hits hard, has great boxing brain, and you know, after that day, I always wanted to. We had a few meetings with Frank Maloney, but it never came of anything. So when he had his second loss against Tony Thompson, I showed my brother the video again, and he saw, you know, what good feet he had, and, you know, what a big right hand he had as well. And we went hell for leather trying to sign him. You know, he was about to sign with Eddie, but, you know, we love heavyweights. And,
of course.
you know, we've got a lot of heavyweights, you know, that David can spar with. David will probably be going over in March to spar with Pulev, Helenius, maybe even Boystov. So, you know, it works well together.
Yeah, sure. Okay. We did mention Kessler earlier. What are the plans with Kessler apart from maybe entering some sort of world record beard growing competition?
Yeah, the beard is I believe it's a bet with his friends. Okay. So I think they got until the 1st of March, and whoever doesn't shave it has to forfeit X and X and do some kind of dare. But
he's become a father, hasn't he? Since
he's become a father. And I think, you know, that's he's enjoying fatherhood at the moment. But Mikkel's always in the gym. He's always in shape. You know, he walks around at, you know, light heavyweight now. So I mean, it wouldn't be, you know,
once he makes
if he decided to come and make another fight, have another fight, it'd be a few months away, because he's already in, you know, he's already got that level of fitness.
Yeah. Would you be surprised if he didn't fight again?
Yeah, I would be surprised. Yeah.
Yeah, so you can see him back. You think he'll fight in 2014?
Hard to say. I hope so. Of course, I hope so. But yeah, you know, I think so.
Okay. With regards to Froch Groves, it's on May the 31st. It looks like it's heading to London. Are you surprised the fight's been made?
You know, I didn't. You know, I have to take my hat off to Eddie Hearn. I mean, it's a tough fight to make. You know, both fighters going in expecting excellent. You know, obviously George. Well, yeah, no, I mean, you know, George deserves his part, and then of course Carl, you know, deserves his part as well. So it's just about making the deal work. And you know, I'm not surprised, because, to be honest, I don't think there's any other fight out there for Carl until he fights George. Okay. And that's, you know, I finally he could have fought Julio Cesar Chavez. And yeah, I mean, I would have watched that fight. It would have been a good fight. But there's still that question mark over George, you know, over that fight. And of course, Julio Cesar Chavez was coming off a debatable victory against Brian Vera. Yeah.
They're rematching next week or the week after. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Slightly changing tack somewhat. If you could promote anyone in world boxing today that you don't already have, who would you like to be working with?
No, that's a good question.
I can
look. I mean,
you've got your Golovkins, you've got your Andre Wards, you've got your Froches, you've got your Klitschko's.
You know, as far as sort of
Floyd, obviously.
Yeah, I mean that for me that's the obvious answer, but. You know, along with Floyd, it comes. It's, you know, you see the person he expects. You know, I mean, it depends what kind of a viewpoint. You know, as a fan, my favourite fighter at the moment walking around is probably Miguel Cotto. I know he's not the best fighter out of anyone, but for me he's the most exciting, and sort of he's what a fighter should be. But as far as promoting, you know. There's quite a few fighters out there. I'm trying to think of one. You know, Golovkin, of course. But again, then you have that problem of, you know, he may not be the most marketable in the world. He's from Kazakhstan, but boxing in America, it's hard to market. But they are marketing him now through his boxing skills. Yeah. So, I mean, it's an endless question, that one.
Okay. Are you always looking to take on more fighters, or are you set with the stable you've got for the time being?
You know, at the moment, I'm happy with the stable we have. You know, and any promoter will tell you that there's only such a limit to how many fighters you can take. But if something exceptional comes along, then of course, or a new angle or a new territory, then, you know, of course.
See what Top Rank are doing in the Middle East and that kind of stuff.
Exactly, you know, in Macau.
The Far East. Yeah.
Okay. And well, yeah, I mean the Middle East is another one. You know, can you imagine you find a Saudi Arabian heavyweight champion of the world? It's not going to happen for a while, but you know, things are developing. You know, you have a lot of money going into sports in Qatar and all these places.
Dubai and so forth.
Dubai, exactly. You know, Russia's another one. You know, where they're developing. I mean, they've already got a great, you know, history of fighters, but.
Yeah, for sure. But they've started to stake real money up against it, as you know, with the Povetkin fight and Klitschko last year.
Well, exactly. You know, we were involved in that. But, you know, as a promoter of a fighter, I don't think, you know, it was a strange one, you know, to work out there. It was different.
Yeah, I can imagine. I can well imagine. Okay, with regards to UK, you've obviously got Dion Juma too, as well as David Price. So it's not going to be long before you're promoting your own shows in the UK, or are you going to be doing some co-promotions?
You know, the way me and my brother work, the way Team Sauerland works, is that we're happy to work with other promoters. The door's always open. We don't ever shut the door on anything. You know, we can promote on our own, and we're also happy to co-promote like we did very successfully with Matchroom. You know, it was a 50-50 show, and it worked perfectly, and they were a joy to work with. But, you know, with David Price, of course, you know, we would go into it thinking that we're going to promote on our own.
Sure, okay. And with regards to the UK side of things, just so that our listeners get the overall picture, you have a TV deal with Box Nation, but you have worked with Matchroom in the past. If you were to promote your own shows in the UK, do you know how that would go about in terms of TV, or is that separate to anything that you've done before?
Well, you know, it depends on the show. You know, if it was a big enough show, then, you know, we'd put it out to the biggest bidder.
Sure, okay.
And that's, you know, that's how it'd work it. But, you know, of course, we have an output deal with our foreign shows to Box Nation at the moment.
Sure, okay. We've seen recently in the marketplace in TV, I don't know if you're aware, but the WWE have their own app coming out where they're putting all their video content and archive stuff through an app, and the UFC are doing something similar. Do you envisage some promoters doing something similar, screening their own fights? Because it's been tough out there in the TV landscape, certainly in the UK. But also everyone's had issues with promotional stuff worldwide with different TV deals. Do you anticipate there being a stage where all promoters have their own TV networks?
Well, look, I mean, if you look at David Caldwell, he's got a great app. You know, I spoke to him the other day about it. It's, you know, it's actually really very well produced, and he's got quite a few people following on that. So, I mean, yeah, in the future, you know, I mean, for us, we have very good connections with television. As long as we have the host broadcaster, where we get the signal, the TV signal of the show from, we're confident to put it into 20, 30, 40 countries around the world, depending on the show.
Sure.
But of course, an app where you could actually, you know, let's say charge people £2 to watch the show, or £5 or £10, judging on the scale of the show. Of course, that would be interesting. And also, you know, getting it out there around the world, and especially if you can block the territories that you've sold in already, you know, it's definitely something we'd look into in the future.
Okay, it's something you touched upon a bit with the Golovkin stuff earlier, and this is really putting your promoter's hat on. Can Eastern Bloc and Cuban fighters become superstars? We've seen this with Rigondo, who's got seemingly limitless talent, but he's really struggling to strike a chord with the US mass TV market. Golovkin, you've mentioned, you know, he's taken his show on the road to Monte Carlo to sort of build his reputation internationally as well, and to keep busy, I think, away from the American TV networks who maybe don't want 4 fights a year against, you know, two smaller fights and 2 bigger ones. But do you think there's a way that these guys can become superstars? And when I say that, I mean crossover mainstream stars.
You know, I think, I mean, if I give a case example of Juan Pablo Hernandez, he started out at, fighting and getting maybe 3 million people watching on German TV, which is just not brilliant. It's gone up now to 4.5 to 5 million people watching him. So he's grown. But the question of being a crossover star to the rest of the world, I'm not sure. Someone like Golovkin, he's talked about everywhere now in boxing circles. No one wants to fight him. HBO are now thinking very highly of him. It wouldn't surprise me if this year becomes a pay-per-view fighter out there. But the question is, will my wife know him? Or will my, Joe Blogs off the street? I don't know. It's a tough job.
Yeah, it's really tough. Like you said, we've seen Rigondo as well, who's really sort of struggled, even though he's got that clear win over Nonito Donaire, who was, in pound for pound terms, sort of top 3 or 4 guy at the time, and it's tough out there for those guys to cross over. Even when you got guys like Andre Ward, who obviously have English as their mother tongue, so to speak, he's struggling to cross over.
I think the problem with someone like Rigondo, Andre Ward, is that they're almost too good. In the fact that if Andre Ward engaged in a few fights, took a couple of shots, made it exciting. I know that it's very hard to do in boxing because you can't just take a couple of shots. But if he made his fights a little bit more exciting, he should be a superstar. Look at the guy should be a superstar. He's good looking. He's a good fighter. I think Nike even using him a little bit in their campaigns. But I don't understand how he's at the perfect weight. But
it just everyone.
He's too good almost. And it doesn't. I would rather watch like someone like Miguel Cotto. Sorry to go, but someone who's excited. He's in exciting fights. I don't know. It's the same as Rigondo. He's almost too good.
You talk about exciting fights, and we talked about the Germans enjoying their heavyweights. What's the general reaction to Tyson Fury in Germany?
I think Tyson Fury's been over a few times to the gym for sparring. He came. I'm talking about the office, our office over there. Comes across very well, very nice guy. As far as in the boxing scene, I don't think people have seen enough of him yet to make it out. The guy's in exciting fights. Every fight is pretty. He goes down, gets up, takes a shot, but he always ends up winning. The last fight, I actually didn't see the Joey Abel fight, but I heard he took a couple of shots. I think Abel's a southpaw, so
it's typical Fury stuff. He walked onto a few.
Exactly, and then ends up winning.
Yeah.
So, you question. You say Andre Ward. What if Andre Ward took a couple more and still won? Andre Ward's he's never been knocked
Tested
down, never
like
been
that.
hit. But Tyson Fury, he's there's something about the guy. I think. Look, people may say, "Oh, he's getting hit. He's getting hit," but he still wins. So that's the main thing.
A fight you'd like to have for David Price down the line?
David Price against Tyson Fury. Yeah, in a year's time, I think they both need to go their separate ways, find themselves, if you like, and build up some more popularity. But that's a fight that would be definitely interesting.
Okay. With your current stable, if you could make one fight for one of your guys, what's the dream? What's the dream clash, and where would you stage it?
That's a good question. Let's have a little think.
I will let you have a think.
Do you
know what, you can have a little. I've actually got some competition stuff to read out. Actually, you can have a little think about that.
Okay, I'll have a sip of coffee.
Yeah, exactly. Last week, during the podcast, we wanted to know, it basically came about that the gloves that Cassius Clay wore, as he was then, for the first fight with Sonny Liston were coming onto the market and expected to fetch $500,000. We wanted to know what memorabilia you guys would have or bid for. The first one came from Vince Hale, who said the piece of boxing memorabilia he would buy is Evander Holyfield's ear. The second one came from Manasseh Mauler, who chose mine, who said he'd get the gloves from the Dempsey-Willard fight. There was one from Dewey Powell, one of our contributors, saying he'd like to own the first ever Welsh title from 1915 when Joe John beat Arthur Evans on points over 20 rounds. Daniel Fraser said he would buy Tyson's signed shorts from the Trevor Berbick fight in 1986. But the winner goes to Joe Burgess, who said, for sentimental reasons, no doubt, I'd buy Johnny Owens belts and take them on a tour of Wales so he can be recognised as a true Welsh great. So, Joe, if you email in your address, and we'll send you out a Boxing News Annual and a couple of bits. So, Nisse, pick a fight for one of your guys.
You know, the obvious one to say would be Kessler Froch 3, Kessler Ward 2. But, you know, I quite like Hook, you know, to give a British angle. Hook against, let's say, Cleverly.
Okay.
You know, he's going up in weight now. That's an interesting fight.
Yeah,
in a couple of fights time, I think Cleverly needs to have a couple of cruiserweight fights, or even Bellew as well at that weight.
Yeah.
And then, of course, Pulev Klitschko.
Okay. All right, interesting stuff.
Yeah.
And then just personally, a little bit about you, just in closing. Obviously, your father's a great Hall of Fame promoter. He was inducted last year, the year before,
a couple
of years ago, in Canastota. Were you and Calla always going to come into boxing together? Was that always the dream?
That was always a dream. You know, when me and my brother were kids, we used to arrange fights between me and him and sell tickets, and then sell my dad's champagne to his friends. So we used to get all his friends down and, you know, make a little bit of money out of it and fight each other. Literally fight each other.
Gloves?
Yeah, gloves. We did no better. Yeah, I think once he wore like just, you know, like the really thin bag gloves,
like
and I had to wear like 20 ounces.
Okay. Who'd win today?
Well, I've been in the ring a few times, but just, you know, just with white collar shows just for a laugh. But he's a lot bigger than me now. I don't know. I'd have to say I've got the speed on him, so, and I've got a better chin.
Okay. We did mention a little bit before that Calla gets a lot of the headlines as almost the front man of the operation. What's the difference between your role and his role? To
be honest, my brother, you know, ever since we were kids, he's got the better. He's the bigger talker than me. I'm sometimes a little bit too realistic with things, and I think, you know, I do a lot of the boxing side of stuff. But my brother's, he's definitely got the gift of the gab. Okay, and because I remember him saying the Super Six was his idea, wasn't it? He's very sort of proud that he was behind the Super Six. I have to say, to give him a little bit of credit, it was all pretty much his idea with Ken Hirschman from HBO. I remember being on holiday somewhere, and he's like, "Oh, I got this idea." I was like, "What?" I was sort of half asleep. He goes, "We're going to do the Champions League of boxing." I was like, and then he sort of explained it to me, and I was like, "That's not a bad idea." And, you know, we rolled from it from there, and it was very successful. I mean, you know, if we did it again, there may be a couple of things that would change just to make it maybe run a bit smoother. But, you know, I think it was a success. It launched Carl Froch's career.
And Andre Ward's, really.
And Andre Ward's.
Or didn't it? Well, yeah. It gave him a platform. For
gave
sure,
him a platform,
yeah. Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely, yeah. It was interesting to see what happened, really, from that, because it was supposed to tell a story, wasn't it? Introduce people to the fighters as people, not just boxers, but as to tell their stories. And it was interesting to see the differing fortunes. When you look back at it, you see, obviously, Jermaine Taylor crashed and burned. Alan Green came in, had a small role to play in it. And in terms of your own talent, it was. Correct me if I'm wrong. It wasn't. I was going to say mini disaster, but it was a bit of a disaster for Arthur Abraham, wasn't it?
I mean, you know, Arthur was the highly touted guy when going in there, and you know, I think he was second favourite maybe, and I think Kessler might have been number
Miguel
one.
was number one.
Yeah, and obviously after he knocked out Jermaine Taylor in the 12th round with a massive shot, everyone was like, "Oh my God, this guy's gonna." You know,
that was his opening statement, wasn't it?
Yeah, there's no way. There's no way, because he made the biggest opening statement. I think Carl fought Dirrell, very close decision, and you know, I think everyone expected Arthur to go from strength to strength from there, but he didn't. I don't know what happened.
Yeah, do you think it was one of those? Was he clearly out? Had he clearly outgrown middleweight?
You know, I to this day I still believe that Arthur, if he'd stayed at middleweight, he would have, still now been a force to be reckoned with. Him against Golovkin would have been a great fight, but
him and Stern was arguably one of the best fights of the generation that didn't happen. One of those ones because they both reigned for a long time at the same time, didn't they?
Yeah, we made quite a few offers to Stern, but it never happened. Arthur. Yeah, I don't know if it was a question of outgrowing middleweight or he wanted to go on to different things. At that time.
We hear a lot of stories about Arthur and fast cars and different things like that. He loves his Ferraris and that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I think he's pretty into that,
And Mikkel's into his motorbikes.
Mikkel's into yeah, exactly. They live dangerously.
Yeah.
Not the best for fighters sometimes,
Can I say the insurance bill at Sauerland Event each year of all the extreme sports and everything. Okay, well look, that's gonna do us nicely for today. So really appreciate you coming into the office. It's been great to have a catch up.
Yeah.
And we'll have to get you in before too long again.
Definitely, 100%.
Without Kala as well, because then then you get a word in edgeways.
The mic off him, that's brilliant.
Okay, all right, guys. Well, thanks a lot for joining us, and many thanks to Nisse for popping in.
Thank you for watching and listening, and remember to subscribe to us on YouTube. Hit the like button on Facebook. Comment or write a review on iTunes or Google Play. It only takes a minute, and it does loads to help us produce shows like these.